So this is the Jefferson Building of the Library of Congress here in Washington on Capitol Hill. And as you were walking in, you would come almost face to face with the racial hierarchy as Americans understood it in the 1890s. We had carved it in stone on our most important institution of knowledge. You'll see wrapped around the building 33 ethnographic heads from designs taken from the Smithsonian's collections. The people on the front of the building are of recognizably European heritage, white people. Around the sides, people of recognizably Asian heritage appear as the keystones. And on the back of the building, people of recognizably African and Melanesian descent. In the greatest institution of human knowledge in the United States and the greatest library in the world, we had placed the ranking of races as we understood it there for everybody to see it. And in walking into the Library of Congress still today, you're taking a kind of museum trip through the racial hierarchy of American history. Franz Boas came to the United States in the 1880s. The science of the day, of his day, was saying, well, humans come in natural things called races, and those races correlate with things like intelligence or leadership skill or fitness for civilization or being world-conquering versus primitive and backward. But Boas spent the early part of his career trying to set out to be what we might call an amateur adventurer. Spent some time on Baffin Island in the Arctic, where he had his first realization. He was well educated, he had a graduate degree, but in living in the Arctic with local Inuit populations, he realized that here he was pretty stupid. He didn't know what to eat, he didn't know how to survive, he didn't know how to harness a dog sled team. I mean, who doesn't know how to harness a dog sled team, right? You have to be really stupid not to know that. And this ended up being the first step in what was a long personal transformation for him. All education is relative. All concepts of civilization are relative because here, now, I turn out to be not even a fully grown human being. And so much of the kind of social theory that he then begins to develop is, a science of human unity. Boas himself was not a very charismatic figure personally, but I think as soon as you took a class with him or sat in his seminar room, you realized that the ideas he was talking about were kind of world upending. Hurston is drawn into the Boas circle in the same way that Margaret Mead and others are, I think principally attracted by the ideas. Boas realized that you have to demonstrate the essential unity of human beings, and the way you do that is really quite simple, he said. Step outside your front door.
Some folks call me a Tolo shaker, it's a doggone.
And what you're going to find is not the simple idea that everybody's the same, but you may encounter the idea that people who seem to be deviant in your own society turn out to be the village chieftain in another society. So you ought to be skeptical about the degree to which the natural categories that seem logical and commonsensical to you are universal. And be particularly skeptical if your theory of human society just happens to put people like you at the top of the pile. Certainly having the resources here in Washington, I couldn't have done this book in exactly the same way had I not been so close to so much of what I needed. It relied so much on the Margaret Mead papers, which are at the Library of Congress. Well, I struggled a bit in the project on how much of their personal lives to include, but I realized at some point that their personal lives were really an important part of the story. All of them had essentially the same realization, that the struggles they were facing, Mead in this loving relationship that had to be kept secret. Zora Neale Hurston is the only African-American student at Barnard at the time. Franz Boas is a German Jewish immigrant at the time of anti-immigrant backlash. the struggles they faced could either be attributed to their own defects. You know, there's something deviant about me that is causing me to have the problems in life I'm having. Or there's something about the way I fit into the social categories, the norms, the culture, if you want to call it that, of the time and place into which I happen by chance to have been born. And from that realization springs an entire social theory.
Franz Boas changed our culture's understanding of superiority and inferiority of various peoples, the rootedness of behavior in biological differences, the unchangeability of habits and customs and institutions in advanced civilizations. He changed all of these, but he also, by example, launched the careers of women and African Americans in an era in which that was still a rarity. So it's an extraordinary chapter in intellectual history.
In so many areas of life, the worldview that Boas and his students were advocating has won out. On the other hand, none of this is finished. They would have understood the struggle. They would have understood the constant seduction of the idea of our own specialness. So I think, you know, one of the lessons is that the route to a moral life is through an understanding of the multiplicity of human cultures. And that's, for them, the only route.